Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to get a little darker today?
Oh, darker. I like it.
We're going deep on money laundering.
It's way more complicated than the movies make it seem, right?
Exactly. We're checking out an episode from the Compliance Officer's Playbook. It's called The Role of Compliance in Anti-Money Laundering Efforts.
Oh, yeah, I listened to that one.
I was really struck by how they explain what compliance officers actually do in this whole hidden world.
It's not just about catching the bad guys. They break down the why behind it all, how this crime impacts so many other things.
Like what?
Well, they said a lot of illegal arms dealing is actually funded through money laundering.
Wow. Okay. That's scary.
It's a huge deal globally.
So for anyone who's maybe new to all this, what actually is money laundering?
Yeah, how do you clean dirty money?
Yeah, the podcast talked about it like a disguise process, right?
Exactly. It's a three-stage process.
Mm-hmm.
Placement, layering, and then integration.
So like giving the money a whole new identity.
You got it. They're trying to make illegal cash blend in with the legitimate world.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about these stages.
So placement is the first step.
That's where they get the money into the system without raising suspicion.
Exactly. Think sneaking cash into regular bank deposits or buying expensive things.
So it looks less suspicious.
Exactly.
Then comes layering.
That's where things get tricky. They're making it really hard to trace where the money came from.
Lots of transfers, maybe. Shell companies, different countries.
All of that. Anything to make it look like normal business transactions.
So it's a really confusing trail.
Basically. Then you have integration.
So that's the final stage. The money is officially clean.
Right. Now it looks like it came from a legitimate business, investments, that sort of thing.
And nobody knows it was dirty to begin with.
The system is pretty clever, but it's super dangerous because these criminals are profiting from their crimes.
And they can just keep doing it, which is where the compliance officers come in.
The financial detectives.
They're working to stop all of this. Their job sounds intense.
It is. The podcast broke down their role into 4 main parts.
Oh, tell me more.
So they develop and implement a whole anti-money laundering program. They monitor for any weird activity. They report anything suspicious. And then they also do tons of training.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Let's start with building that AML program. Is it like creating this huge fortress to protect the bank?
Kind of. First, they have to create rules, policies, procedures. That's the foundation.
So everyone knows what they can and can't do.
Right. Then there's risk assessment.
So figuring out where the weaknesses are.
Yeah, like what types of customers or activities are more likely to be involved in money laundering.
So it's not just about the rules. It's about understanding how people might try to break them.
Exactly. And then there's something that affects all of us. Customer due diligence.
CDD.
Like
a background check for our finances.
Exactly. They check our identities, assess our risk level.
So if I start making massive deposits out of nowhere, that's going to raise some red flags.
Definitely. They might do what's called enhanced due diligence. Dig a little deeper, you know.
So wait, this isn't just some computer doing all this work.
Oh, no, it's way more than that.
There are humans involved.
Absolutely. Technology plays a huge part, don't get me wrong.
But someone is actually looking at all this.
Yeah, with their experience and intuition, they make the call.
Yeah, it's reassuring. Speaking of detective work, what about that second function?
Monitoring and detection.
Yeah. It seems like a 204/7 job, always watching for clues.
It really is. Compliance officers are looking at mountains of data, trying to spot those tiny things that just seem off.
Like what? Besides my sudden fortune, of course.
Well, think about it. Anything unusual for a particular customer,
Okay, I see.
complex transactions dealing with high-risk countries or industries, those are big red flags.
I bet cryptocurrencies have made things even more complicated.
Oh, absolutely. Crypto's a whole other beast.
Yeah, it's like digital cash that can go anywhere, right?
And there are so many different types, so many platforms, it's tough to track.
So how do they even keep up?
Well, a lot of them are becoming experts in blockchain technology.
Wow. It's like a whole new language to learn.
It is, but thankfully they have help. There's special software that can analyze all those blockchain transactions.
So like a digital bloodhound sniffing out the bad stuff.
Exactly. But let's not forget the old school tricks either.
Like what?
Structuring, sometimes called smurfing.
Smurfing? Like the little blue guys?
Not quite. It's when they break down large amounts of money into smaller chunks.
So they fly under the radar.
Exactly. They think they can slip it past by making lots of small deposits just below the reporting limit.
Clever, but hopefully not clever enough.
That's the goal.
So then we have the third function, reporting all this activity and making sure things are legal.
This is where things get serious. If they suspect money laundering, they have to report it.
It's not just a hunch, it's an obligation.
Right. These reports are called SARs, Suspicious Activity Reports.
So those SARs are what help law enforcement build their cases.
Exactly. And if they don't file those reports,
So trouble.
big fines, and sometimes even criminal charges.
Wow, no pressure. I see why the podcast called them heroes.
They are. They're doing incredibly important work.
Okay, so they've built the program, they're watching everything, and reporting anything shady. What's that fourth part about? The training.
That's the continuous learning part. The world of finance is always changing.
And the criminals are always coming up with new tricks.
Exactly. So they have to stay ahead of the curve.
Conferences, publications, all that.
It's a lot to keep up with, but it's crucial.
Sounds like a really demanding job, but so important.
It is. They're the unsung heroes, protecting us from all the harm that comes from money laundering.
Well, we've covered a lot today, understanding what money laundering is, why it's such a big deal, and the role of these compliance officers.
They really are like detectives piecing together all the clues.
Exactly. And next time, we'll get into the challenges they face, because criminals aren't exactly using suitcases of cash anymore.
Oh no, they've gotten way more creative.
That's for part 2.
It's going to be good. You won't look at your online transactions the same way again.
Welcome back, everyone. We left off talking about how compliance officers are like the financial detectives working to stop money laundering.
Right, we covered those 4 main functions of their job.
But of course, it's not all smooth sailing.
No, not at all. Criminals are always coming up with new tricks.
The podcast talked about some of those challenges.
Yeah, like how criminals are using technology to their advantage.
The first thing that jumped out at me was cryptocurrencies.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
I mean, they're everywhere these days.
It's a classic example of how technology can be used for good.
Or for bad.
Exactly. Cryptocurrencies offer anonymity and decentralization, which is great for privacy.
But not so great when it comes to tracking illegal activity.
Exactly. It makes them very attractive for money laundering.
Makes sense. It's like digital cash that can move around the world really easily.
Right. And with so many different cryptocurrencies and platforms,
It's hard to keep track of it all.
it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack, except the haystack keeps growing and changing shape.
So how are compliance officers even keeping up with all this?
Well, they're having to learn a whole new set of skills.
Like what?
A lot of them are becoming experts in blockchain technology. They need to understand how it works, you know?
Yeah, all the different types of cryptocurrencies, how they're traded. It's like learning a whole new language.
It is, but they're not alone in this. There's specialized software now that can help.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it can analyze blockchain transactions and flag any suspicious patterns.
So, like a digital bloodhound, sniffing out those crypto trails.
Exactly. But we can't forget about the old school tricks either.
Oh, right, like what?
Stuff like structuring, sometimes called smurfing.
Smurfing.
Yeah, it's when criminals break down large amounts of money into smaller transactions.
Oh, so they don't trigger any alarms.
Right. They try to fly under the radar by making a bunch of deposits that are just below the reporting threshold. So sneaky. But hopefully not sneaky enough.
We can only hope.
Okay, so we've got crypto and smurfing. What other challenges are out there?
Well, the darknet is a big one.
The dark net. I've heard about that, but it sounds scary.
It can be. It's essentially a hidden part of the internet where people can operate anonymously.
I bet a lot of illegal stuff goes down there.
You're not wrong. Drugs, weapons, stolen identities, you name it. And it's also a hotbed for money laundering.
Yeah, because it's so hard to track what's going on.
Exactly. And what's really alarming is that you can actually find criminals who specialize in money laundering on the darknet.
So criminals hiring other criminals to clean their money.
Yep. It's like outsourcing the dirty work.
Wow, that's crazy.
It's a huge challenge for law enforcement, trying to track all this activity in a space that's designed to be hidden.
So how do they even approach something like that?
It takes a lot of effort. They're working to infiltrate these networks, disrupt operations.
I guess it's a combination of traditional detective work and new technology, right? Absolutely. Cyber forensics plays a big role. Compliance officers need to be tech savvy, but also think like a criminal.
Anticipating their next move.
Exactly. They're always in this arms race, trying to stay one step ahead.
And then the podcast also mentioned online gambling.
Oh yeah, that's another area that's become a target for money laundering.
I never really thought about that.
It makes sense, though. There's so much money flowing through these platforms, and it can be difficult to trace the source of those funds.
So how would someone actually use online gambling to launder money?
Well, one way is they deposit illegal funds, play a few games, and then cash out their winnings.
So it looks like they just got lucky.
Exactly. The money now appears to have come from legitimate gambling winnings.
So they're basically washing the money through the casino.
Right. And unfortunately, there have been cases where criminals have colluded with people inside these platforms to make it even easier.
So it seems like they're always finding new ways to exploit the system.
It's a constant cat and mouse game.
Okay, so what about mobile payment apps? Are those safe?
Unfortunately, they can be vulnerable too.
I use those all the time.
Yeah, they're super convenient, but that speed and convenience also makes them appealing to criminals.
Because they can move money quickly and quietly.
Exactly. And the verification processes on some of these apps aren't as strict.
So it's easier for criminals to slip through the cracks.
That's the problem.
Wow. It feels like compliance officers have their work cut out for them. With all this new technology, how can they possibly keep up?
Well, they're using technology to fight technology.
Like what?
Artificial intelligence is becoming a big weapon in the fight against money laundering.
AI. That's interesting.
AI can analyze huge amounts of data and spot patterns that a human might miss.
So it's like having a superpower detective working around the clock.
Right. AI can look at all those transactions, the amounts, frequencies, locations, who's involved, and identify anything that seems off.
Wow, that sounds incredibly powerful. Is there anything else AI can do?
It's not just about detecting suspicious activity. AI can also help with risk assessment.
So figuring out who's more likely to be involved in money laundering before it even happens.
Exactly. And some experts believe AI could even be used to predict future criminal behavior.
Predicting the future. That's getting pretty sci-fi.
I know, but it's becoming a reality. Imagine an AI system that can analyze a customer's transaction history, their social media activity, their travel patterns.
And use all that to figure out if there are potential risks.
Exactly. It's a game changer.
That's incredible. So we've got AI helping to detect, assess, and even predict. What about blockchain? We talked about how criminals are using cryptocurrencies, but isn't blockchain supposed to be super secure?
It is. That's the irony of it all.
So how can the same technology be both a problem and a solution?
Well, think of blockchain like a public ledger. Every transaction is recorded and time-stamped.
And it's really hard to change or erase that data.
Right. It's almost impossible.
So if we could use blockchain for all financial transactions, that would make money laundering way harder.
Exactly. Imagine a world where every financial move leaves a permanent, transparent record.
Wow, that would make it really hard to hide anything. But is that even possible?
It would be a huge shift. But a lot of experts believe that blockchain will play a big role in the future of anti-money laundering.
It's amazing how these new technologies are changing things. But with all this talk about AI and blockchain, what does it mean for the people doing this work?
Yeah, are compliance officers going to be replaced by robots?
Exactly.
Oh, I don't think so. Not anytime soon, anyway.
So humans are still important.
Absolutely. Technology can help us analyze data, spot patterns, but it's the human analysts who understand the nuances.
The context, the bigger picture. So it's more about humans and technology working together.
Exactly. Compliance officers of the future will need to be tech-savvy, data-driven, able to use these new tools.
But they also need those critical thinking skills,
Yeah.
right? Problem solving, communication.
All of that. It's a fascinating field, and it's constantly evolving.
And sounds like it. So where do we go from here? What does the future of anti-money laundering look like?
Well, that's a great question, and it's one we'll be exploring in Part 3. We'll talk more about the potential impact of AI and blockchain.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the world of anti-money laundering.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. We started by understanding how this crime actually works.
Right, the whole disguise process.
Then we got into the role of those compliance officers, those financial detectives working behind the scenes.
And all the challenges they face, especially with technology evolving so rapidly.
Exactly. So for this last part, I want to look ahead. What does the future hold for all of this? Especially with AI and blockchain, it feels like things are about to get even more complex.
Oh, absolutely. We're in a time of major change. AI is already having a huge impact, and it's only going to grow.
Yeah, we talked about how AI can be used to spot those suspicious patterns in all that data.
Like having a superpowered detective.
Right. But the really exciting part is how AI can be more proactive, not just reacting to things that have already happened.
Exactly. We're talking about using AI for risk assessment, even predicting future criminal behavior.
Predicting the future. It sounds a bit like a sci-fi movie.
It does, but it's happening. Think about it. An AI system could analyze a customer's history, their online activity, even their travel patterns, and flag them as potentially risky.
So it's all about analyzing data to see the bigger picture and spot those red flags before they become a problem.
Right. This kind of approach could really change the game for compliance officers.
It frees them up to focus on the really high-risk stuff.
Exactly. They're not wasting time chasing every little thing.
Okay, that makes sense.
But what about blockchain? We've talked about how cryptocurrencies can be misused, but isn't blockchain itself supposed to be super secure?
It is. And that's the funny thing. Criminals might be exploiting cryptocurrencies, but the underlying technology, blockchain, could actually make the whole financial system more transparent and secure. Wait, hold on. How can the same technology be both a problem and a solution?
Well, imagine blockchain like a public ledger. Every transaction is recorded, time-stamped, and it's almost impossible to tamper with that data.
So it's a permanent record of everything.
Exactly. So if we could somehow apply blockchain to all financial transactions,
It would be way harder to launder money.
right. Imagine a world where every financial move is transparent. Criminals wouldn't be able to hide.
There would be a whole new level of accountability.
Hmm.
But is that even realistic?
It's a huge undertaking for sure. There are challenges, but the potential is there, and many experts believe blockchain will be a big part of anti-money laundering in the future.
It's mind-blowing how these new technologies are shaping the fight against financial crime. But with all this talk about AI and blockchain, I can't help but wonder, what about the humans doing this work?
Yeah, are we all going to be replaced by robots?
Exactly.
I don't think so.
Hmm.
Not anytime soon. Technology is great for analyzing data and spotting those patterns, but it's still humans who understand the context.
They see the bigger picture. Right.
Exactly.
So it's more about humans and technology working together.
Definitely. The compliance officers of the future, they'll need to be tech-savvy, data-driven.
They have to know how to use all these new tools.
Right. But they'll also need critical thinking skills, problem-solving, communication.
So it's not just about crunching numbers. They still need to be detectives, using their intuition.
Absolutely. It's a constantly changing field, but that's what makes it so interesting.
It does. Well, we've covered so much in this deep dive, from how money laundering works to the role of compliance officers, and even what the future might hold.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is just how important this work is.
Absolutely. Compliance officers, they're the unsung heroes, working to keep our financial systems safe.
So to all those compliance officers out there, thank you.
Thank you.
And to our listeners, stay informed, stay curious. This is a fight that affects all of us.
It does.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.